Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast, brought to you by Two Notes Audio Engineering. Two Notes is a leader in the market for load box, cabinet, and mic simulators. Gone are the days of having ISO rooms or having to record an amp at ear-bleeding volumes to capture that magic tone. The Torpedo Live, Reload, and Studio allow you to crank your amp up as loud as you want, but record silently. Check out www.2-notes.com for more info. And now your hosts, Joey Sturgis, Joel Wanasek, and EYAL Levy.
Welcome to another lovely episode of Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast. How you guys doing out there? EYAL's with me. Hello.
Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Doing good. And today we have, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, so EYAL, take it away.
Well, Mr. Henrik Udd, how is that?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Udd.
Pretty.
Yeah.
Udd.
Yeah.
Udd.
Swedish.
Now, he's a guy I'm sure most of you have heard of. And if you haven't, then I know that you've heard his work and just didn't realize that you've heard his work, because he's been in the game since at least the Dimmu Borgir Death Cult Armageddon days. But you had known him from working with bands like Architects, Bring Me the Horizon, At the Gates, I Killed the Prom Queen, Hammerfall. I mean, list goes on. Came up through Studio Fredman.
Yep.
And which is one of the most legendary metal studios of all time. It's, I know that when I was learning production, Studio Fredman was, there was Colin Richardson, there was Andy Sneap, and there was Frederick Nordstrom at Studio Fredman. And those were like the three gods. So to come up, I can't think of. There were other guys that were also amazing, but I feel like that was the holy trinity in metal in like the early 2000s. And to come up through one of those seems pretty amazing. So thank you for being here, and thank you for doing Nail the Mix. Henrik is coming on this month for Nail the Mix, doing Architects, a song called Gone with the Wind. And we'll talk about that some, and also just want to hear a little bit about your story. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, inviting me to this show. Yeah, so I grew up listening to Guns N' Roses and Iron Maiden and Metallica and stuff. But it never got much more metal than that. So
how did you end up at a place like Fredman, where it's way more over the top than that kind of stuff?
Actually, it was by chance. Like I did some audio engineering school, and I needed a place to do my internship for 5 weeks. And I called like every studio in Gothenburg with a phone book. And
hold on a second. Hold on. Let me just explain what a phone book is for people that are that are like under 25 years old. It's a book that has phone numbers in it. They used to exist. So, yep. All right. So go on. You called every studio from the phone book?
Yeah, exactly. And then I called Studio Fredman, and Fred asked me if I was like, are you good at Pro Tools? And I lied and said I was the king of Pro Tools. So he said, okay, you can come here then for 5 weeks. And actually, when I got there, it was they just started drums for Death Cult Armageddon. So that was my first session to do there, like to learn.
Wait, so but you didn't know how to use Pro Tools?
No, I was using Cubase or Nuendo at the time. And
okay, so you had some
I knew
experience.
some from school, but I used Cubase a lot then. But I was watching him what he did and picked it up pretty fast.
Did he immediately let you work on the Dimmu stuff?
Yeah, pretty much straight on, because he needed someone to edit kick drums, which was MIDI, and he put me on that work. And I moved just the kick drums, not the whole drum kit like you do a lot today, but just moved the kick drums to to the rest of the drum kit.
There's a lot of kick drums on that record.
A lot of kick drums. So I think I sat there for a week and just moved it. But it was fun for a bit.
That's a pretty big record to have as your first record.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I bought myself some studio gear before that and recorded some local bands and stuff like that. But that was like the first metal production I was ever involved with. So
was it a huge, I don't know, it had to be a huge difference going from working with local bands suddenly being on a big Dimmu Borgir record that has like an orchestra and, you know, is one of the biggest bands in metal.
Yeah, it was mental. Like, and at the time I was more into Radiohead music and listened to a Swedish band called Kent and more pop rock indie thing. So it's like hard to pick up what was going on in the music. I mean, when you're not adjusted to listening to metal, I think you don't understand really what's coming at you from the speakers. But I think I picked it up fast and starting to love it. And
so he initially told you to come in for 5 weeks.
Yeah, that's how long the intern thing from the school was.
Because I know of a few other people who got the 5-week internship who didn't stay. So what happened after that? How did you end up staying there?
So I went back and finished at the school and then went back to my normal job as a forklift driver at a storage. And I was so tired of that kind of work. And it's like all I thought about was going back into music. So one day my boss came out and had some complaints at me, and I just told him I will quit this. I'll quit today. And then I left and went to Fred's place again and asked him if he could have any use for me for working for free. And I think he liked what I did during the 5 weeks there. So he said I could stay, and so I stayed for a year and worked for free, basically. And
so wait, what else did you do in the 5 weeks? Because you said you did kick drums for 1 week. What other stuff did you do?
Some bass recording and guitars and stuff. Like it was pretty good with that. Freddie like put people in work straight away, like trust.
So it was really sink or swim. Like you really got the chance to prove yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or to either prove that you know what you're doing or prove that you suck really, really quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so he already knew that you could do various things when you came back. He knew that you could record a band or you could edit,
yeah,
and that you could hang around with a band for a long period of time and still get along fine as people, which is very important.
Absolutely.
So you went back and you offered to work for free for like a year. How did you live?
Back then I was staying at my mom and dad's place, so it was pretty simple. They helped me out with all that.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so I worked there, but then like thought about, because he couldn't hire me then because he had another guy working for him called Patrick. And so I decided to go to a university for audio engineering. So after a year I started a second school for that and stayed there for 2 years. And then worked in the summers for Fred, recording bands and stuff. And
how did you eventually get hired?
It was we were on a show with Fred's band, Dream Evil, and his drummer in the band worked for him. That was Patrick. And on a show in Stockholm, he said like, I'm going to quit my work with you and I'm going to start to do something else. And then since I've been there for a long time, he asked me, do you want a job? And yes, that was like happiest day of my life.
So he was retiring from production?
Yeah, exactly. He's an awesome drummer and like really good at production and stuff, but he wasn't too much into mixing and stuff at the time, I think. So he wanted to quit.
We're talking about Fred, right?
No, Patrick, the drummer.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you said that Fred wanted to quit production.
No.
Okay. Oh, okay. So he was in a band with his own assistant.
Yeah,
Patrick.
exactly.
Got it. So Patrick just wanted out.
Yeah, and I took his job since I worked there for a long time.
How many years would you say elapsed between the first internship with Dimmu Borgir to the time that Patrick decided to leave?
I think he left in 2007, so 4 years. But I mean, I was going to school at between that too. But
it just goes to show that when you try to make a situation happen for yourself in the music industry, like build a relationship that will end up employing you or something.
Yeah,
these are things that can take years.
Yeah.
And I just urge people who are interning or trying to get assistant jobs or work under big producers to be patient and give it time, because, you know, in my story as well, when I got the gig at Audiohammer, I got the gig at Audiohammer after knowing them for 5 years. Mm-hmm. It wasn't overnight. It took a long time. It took a long time of recording there and then leaving and then coming back and helping with some stuff and then going and touring and coming back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, I think that a lot of kids that are going for work positions in the industry are trying to do things a little too quickly at times. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a good example that it takes time and proving yourself over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So that people feel comfortable with you.
Yeah, I think that I learned so much in that year I was working there for free. I mean, there was a lot of great bands too. And Fred left me a lot of work and like came in and oversaw it the other day or something, and it was good experience.
What bands did you work on during that year?
I don't really remember, to be honest.
It's all just a big blur.
Yeah, it's all just a big blur. Among one, Fred's own band, but...
Well, I mean, there's always a ton of bands going through that studio. Mm. Joey, when you hear stories like this, does it make you think that your own story is kind of, I guess, like an outlier?
Yeah, I do think it's interesting because there's also a perspective of, like, when I was coming up, I remember listening to Dream Evil and being like, this is huge. Like, I wonder what, you know, big producer did this or what big studio did that. And like, it's interesting because now I feel like I'm friends with a lot of the people that I looked up to. And so I don't know how to feel about that. I think it's weird.
Yeah, it's weird for me too, because like back in 2004, while you were sitting there editing those drums on the Dimmu, or maybe a year after that when it came out, I was sitting there wondering how the hell this record was even possible.
Yeah, because it's so good, you know.
Yeah, how it's even possible to make it sound that good. So I think it kind of blows my mind to get a start around such phenomenal productions.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about Architects some.
Yeah.
Because you're coming on to do Architects. Mm-hmm. So why don't we talk about Architects some? You've done 2 records with them, Lost Forever, Lost Together, and All Our Gods Have Abandoned Us. Yeah. How did you come into contact with them?
It was like 2008, I worked with Bring Me the Horizon for the first time, did an album called Suicide Season. And then Sam was doing some guest vocals there, so he came over to Sweden just to do that and party a bit. And it's like I knew that because these 2 bands were good friends, and I don't think Architects really wanted to come to us because Bring Me the Horizon was doing the production at our studio. So when Bring Me the Horizon stopped coming to us, I went to a show in Gothenburg with Architects, and I was pissed drunk, I think, and don't remember too much, and came in and talked to Tom and told him his guitar sound sucked so bad. And that's all I remember. But afterwards he said that really sold the gig, hearing about how bad my guitar sound is. And
really?
Yeah, it's true.
Was it an Architects show, or were they on tour with Bring Me the Horizon?
No, it was an Architects show.
Okay. So you got drunk and told them their sound sucked, and that got you hired.
I think I told him, especially your guitar sound sucks so bad. And that got him really happy, because he never used to be happy with his guitar sound on anything. So he came here and said, "Okay, now show me how you do it."
So after that, you were working on one of their records, and what was the experience like working on that first record with them?
It was fantastic. I mean, they're so good musicians, and everyone is really a good person. So everything almost went too well. Like, it sounded awesome, all the recordings. But then one day the kitchen flooded, and there's a Thai massage upstairs from the kitchen, and there was a lot of shit raining down in our kitchen, and it got totally destroyed, water damaged.
Oh no!
And that kind of put the lid on the recording. Like, everything was going too well. And after that, we had to eat outside in a party tent that Fred put up. And
wait, so how long did it take to get that cleaned up?
It took months and months. So so the rest of the recording, they had to sleep in the recording room and like cook. Since all of them are vegans too, it was a bit difficult to not be able to cook your own food. So yeah, we got a bit depressed after that, but still good memories afterward.
Dude, I remember one night when my band was on tour, like in 2007, and our singer was going crazy, and he grabbed a pipe. He grabbed a pipe above the stage and started swinging from it, and the pipe broke, and it was a shit pipe. And he broke the shit pipe, and it didn't just come out of the ceiling. It came out of the ceiling at an angle to where it was pointing straight at the audience, and it just sprayed them in shit for like 5 minutes. It was horrible. It's so bad, but so amazing at the same time. Just one of those things that we were never able to play there ever again after the shit pipe incident. But yeah, it's definitely one of the best experiences I've ever had. I just thought it was water at first.
Yeah.
Then, because I got some on my arm, then I looked on my arm, and there's like brown liquid on it. And I was like, ugh. So I can relate to how awful your situation must have been.
Yeah, but I think we finished that album, the Lost Forever, Lost Together, when it's like they weren't really done with it, but I think they just wanted to go home. So it's like they said, okay, we're flying home, and I was like, we're not done. We have the mix and everything. There's still more takes to do, and I was like,
we're done. It's okay.
Yeah.
Where were they sleeping?
They slept in the recording room after the accident.
So you guys all slept in this. You guys all slept in the recording room.
Yeah, I mean, I slept at my place, but they slept at the recording room. And so the next album they did, they rented a house. A big house, so
no poop problems.
Yeah,
there.
Exactly. So yeah, but it was a fun recording, and they were like really inspired to do the best album they could ever do, and like, you know how it can feel like sometimes when the band does their 5th or 6th album and they're not really going for it. So a lot of good energy doing this album.
Yeah, sometimes bands get to their 5th or 6th record and it's almost like a day job.
Yeah, autopilot.
Yeah, they've just done it so many times. I know of one band, I was around for their 5th album, and one guitar player didn't pick up a guitar. He was at the studio for 5 weeks. He didn't pick up a guitar the entire time. He just sat on a couch and looked at stocks. checked his stocks the entire time. He didn't. In a really big band too. It was like their 5th or 6th record.
Yeah.
He didn't pick up a guitar once. So why not just stay home?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Joey, did you ever get situations like that at your place with some super seasoned bands just being like, whatever?
Well, sometimes it's welcomed. In my position,
that's true.
It's like,
yeah, true.
I'm glad you're not bothering me because you're not good at guitar or whatever it is, you know. I'd like to when the good guitar player is playing all the guitar parts, I guess.
I guess that's the part I left out, was that this guy that was checking his stocks all day wasn't the good guitar player anyways.
Yeah.
So
it's okay.
So
it's okay.
Well, it's okay, but at the same time, it's just, why even come to the studio?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I guess I can speak more to that because, like, you know, when the band comes, if there's a guy who's gonna do all the guitars and, like, you know, there's like a, you know, each person in the band kind of has a role to play in the recording process. If you're there and you're just taking up space, it's kind of detrimental to the recording. Because you know, somebody's got to take you somewhere when you need to go to the store, and then you need food, and like, you take up space, and you talk when we don't, you know, you talk when we're trying to work, you know, all these things. So yeah, I you know, I like to do the records. They don't always work out perfectly, but when the band comes in like little teams. I like when the drummer and the guitar player come over for a while and then they go away, and then the vocalist and the bass player comes over and stuff like that. Works out pretty good.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did on the latest Architects album. They stayed in the house and like working on songs or cooking food or whatever. And they came in small teams of 2. And it works out good.
As opposed to having the whole band staying there the entire time.
Yeah. I mean, it can get very boring to stay for 5 weeks in the studio and when you're not doing much. I mean, if you're not recording.
Yeah, well, think about it from a drummer's perspective, especially if you record the drums first. They record drums first for the first week, and then they're just hanging out for the next 3 or 4 weeks. Like, what are they going to do? And in my experience, what they end up doing is distracting everybody because they get so bored. They, you know, invariably they start drinking more or partying more or just too much nervous energy, and it definitely distracts. So that's one thing actually that I think that older bands are a lot better about, is when you ask them to work in teams, or to, you know, if we're doing drums first, have just the main guitarist and the drummer come for the first week. Yeah. And then just the 2 guitar players for the next week, you know, or whatever. I feel like with older bands, it's a lot easier to request those sorts of things. With younger bands, it's a bit tougher.
Yeah, exactly.
They all want to be there the whole time.
For us, like the most bands comes from abroad and stay in the studio, sleeping there, so it's a bit hard sometimes to get them in smaller teams when they're here the whole time.
So are you guys in a centrally located area to where they can just walk to bars or walk to the grocery store?
Not really. It's like, it's not far from the center of Gothenburg, but it's far enough to walk somewhere good. It's like more an industrial area, so...
So do they rent a car, or
some
does that end up... Oh, okay.
Yeah, some do that, or take the bus into town, something like that.
So it doesn't end up being your job?
No, exactly.
Okay, that's good. Man, I hated it when that used to become my job.
Driving people around?
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, you drive somebody as a favor one day, then... it becomes twice a day. Then before you know it, you're the chauffeur. And you're spending a good quarter of your day just driving people around instead of working.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, because getting 5 people to coordinate their schedules.
One time I recorded a band where they lived in the same state, and they were like a few towns away, 40-minute drive, and they would barely get to the studio. Like, what
do you mean?
Like, they would say, "We're coming," and then hours go by. "We're coming," and then hours go by. "Our ride just picked us up." Hours go by. "Oh man, we're not gonna make it today." Like, it's like, okay, well, I could have done something cool today, but you kept me here waiting for you.
Yeah.
Was it a local band?
I don't want to say who it was.
So it was a well-known band.
Well-known band, yeah.
Amazing. So yeah, you'd stay there all day because you'd be like, okay, they're going to be here in 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's like they just keep it going,
So I guess it's good and bad to have people staying at the studio, but it's like the good thing that we always done is like they can keep on working after we go home. If we show them how to track something, and they can work on some bass or something and then check it and redo it the next day.
Did you have a special like tracking room just for the bands, or would you let them just use your control room?
Nah, they're using the whole studio. So Fred's always done like that.
Even when you guys are gone?
Yeah. So it's 24/7 if you want to work.
That's a lot of trust.
Yeah.
That's scary, man. That's actually kind of scary. I'm kind of impressed. Just because of the idea that getting someone that doesn't know what they're doing on your system, they could possibly screw up the sessions.
But I mean, there's always one guy in the band that knows some stuff and you can teach him something. And it's worse if they spill the beer on the control surface or something.
Has that ever happened?
No, not so far.
That's happened to me.
Did?
Yeah. I don't think he'll care, so I'll tell it. But Ben Bruce spilled a whole beer all over my central station.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oof.
And so I just made him order one for me.
There was a really, really big band on Nuclear Blast Records recording at Audio Hammer once. And it was during a guitar session. The guitar player was up at the it's not a console. It's one of those desks. Those desks that we all have now that have like all your racks
yeah.
right next to you.
Yeah.
The modern style recording desks. And he was up there and he was holding a beer and kind of stoned, and it was a full beer. And he was just talking and 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 talking, talking and talking and talking. And as he was talking, his beer just started to tip over more and more and more. He just kept on talking and talking, and the beer was just pouring into a Chandler. He poured his entire fucking beer into the Chandler. It was so bad.
Yeah.
Then he blamed it on us because he said that that we had coffee up there, so it's our fault.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah, the label paid for it though.
All right.
Yeah. No, he literally poured like a full beer into the Chandler. So I've never, how some people are really, really weird about having drinks on gear. I have never actually seen a drink that was on gear get spilled into the gear, but I have seen somebody standing over a Chandler pour a beer into a Chandler.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Get frothy preamps.
Dude, it was a compressor too. It was an expensive piece of gear.
Oh, it was a compressor?
I believe so. I think it was a Chandler compressor.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure. And it was definitely like one of the prize units in that rack.
For those of you guys listening this, and you have, you look over to your right and you see that precious little piece of gear that you worked so hard to buy. This happens.
Yeah, it does happen. I mean, I'm trying to think. I've never really had a band. Well, actually, I had a band destroy my my band lounge once. They
by accident or just?
Oh, it didn't look too accidental to me. It looked like alcohol induced. Like it seemed like they had just watched one of those Pantera vulgar videos where they destroyed a dressing room and they thought that they were rock stars, and they destroyed the band lounge at my old house. And like they left me a little shrine. The shrine was all this trash and my Xbox in the middle, and it was like all piled up in the corner. And like the beds were at a weird angle. It was like they totally just fucked the whole room up. But I charged their manager $1,500 for it, and he paid. So it was fine. I mean, they usually pay for this shit.
Yeah.
I've had labels pay me for all kinds of weird stuff.
Like what?
I think I said this on an early episode, but at this point we have a lot of episodes. So, but there was a band that like they took a dump on the lawn, and I took a picture of it, and then I was really mad because my landlord was really mad at me. So I was really mad because I was like, man, this has nothing to do with me, you know? And so I took a picture of it and I just emailed it to the label. Like, I was just like, your band did this in my yard. And they sent me a check for $500.
Wow, really?
Yeah. They were like, we're sorry.
You didn't invoice them? Like you didn't send them a poop invoice?
No, because they just paid me. I don't know. It happened very fast. It was just like, they were like, that's unacceptable. Here, you know, we're sending you a check
Here's
for
$500.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. Well, that works. And I think I gave like half of it to the landlord. I was like, oh, they gave me $250. And I kept $250.
Yeah, this is the poop fine. I mean, have you have any stories like that with bands just doing fucked up shit at the studio?
Yeah, there's a lot of stories, but not clean enough to be told.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's been a lot of puking in the beds, and someone's jumping into the wall and destroying stuff.
Which wall?
Like the sleeping. There's some bunk beds, and someone jumped into the wall and destroyed it, and had to rebuild the beds.
Did they pay for it?
Nah, I don't think they paid for it. No.
Bastards.
Famous band.
Of course. It's always the famous. Yeah. The destruction seems to be always with those bands.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true.
You get a bit tour damage, I think, if you're out on a bus and can do whatever you want for most of the year. There's no trash cans anywhere.
And you think that the studio is just an extension of the tour bus.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's talk some more about the second Architects record, because you're doing a track off that on Nail the Mix.
Yeah.
So you're doing a track called Gone with the Wind, correct?
Yep.
And we chose it because it's got many different elements in it.
Yeah.
It's got cleans, it's got screams, it's got all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah, from like a mixing perspective.
Yeah. Like, what was challenging about it for you?
So I think that one was one of the hardest songs for me to mix, because I don't know why really, but I didn't think I got it to sound good, and I think I did in the end, but when I worked on it, I thought it was harder for some reason to get it to sound good. Maybe the guitars were a bit faster and stuff like that in the start, and then it goes down to this more mellow parts, and was more of a struggle for me to mix it.
Have you noticed that there's always songs on records that some of them just mix themselves very easily?
Yeah.
And then others are just hard for some reason?
Yeah. It's like most of the time it has something to do with the arrangement. I think if it's a good arrangement, it will mix itself. And for this song, I think it's a good arrangement, but it's just harder for some reason to get the drums to sound good in the more softer parts. I thought I was struggling with the kick drum to make it less clicky in those parts and stuff like that.
It ended up being a pretty big song, though, so it seems like you did okay.
Yeah, it's always like that when I mix something. It's like a roller coaster for me. 1 minute I think I'm the king and stands up and like hooray, and then the next day I'm at the bottom. Don't want to hear it again. It's like it goes up and down like that for me.
Well, how long does it normally take you to mix a record?
It's normally 5 days. Not with Architects One. I was a bit longer. I carried on and we did some mix changes. So it's like that's what I really enjoy now. When I started my own company, I can take as long time as I want on a mix because I have a hard time to stop the mix until I'm happy or until a certain point.
And do you do your own mix setup? Like, do you lay your own samples and do all that stuff, or do you have an assistant help you?
No, I do all the stuff, basically. Someone might check the triggers, like if we have an intern or something, check so all the samples play correctly and stuff like that. But other than that, I do all the stuff.
And you can still do a record in 5 days, even with doing all that stuff?
Yeah, like I normally spend 1 or 2 days on the basic sound, on the first sound, on the first song, and then move on to the next one, and then adjust some stuff when you hear it in perspective on a different song. And then all the week long I tend to adjust the songs for the changes I make. But I spent longer time on the Architects album than 5 days, but it's usually what we book in for, which I think it's a little too few days. But
5 days is pretty quick.
Yeah.
So what do you consider taking a long time, like an Architects? How long did that take?
I don't know. I maybe done it in 10 days then, something like that.
So like a normal person's mix.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think mixers these days are getting faster because I remember back in like mid-2000s, mixers would take 3 or 4 weeks on a mix.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people are doing them in like 5 days. Everything's so much faster now. Like, how long did the mix take on Death Cult?
Oh, I actually left before my internship didn't last for 3 months, which it take to record that album, I think. So I wasn't there for the mix. But I think it took a long time just to get the strings. They went to Prague and recorded the symphonic orchestra. And they also mixed it in surround, I remember. So probably 14 days or something like that. But
that's still
pretty quick. Yeah.
I was about to say, that's pretty quick for a record that's that complex.
Yeah.
Joey, what's your quickest mix or longest mix?
I might have something more interesting than my quickest mix. I've actually, there was a song I was working on. It was like somewhere in the middle of an album where I had already mixed like 6 other songs on the same album. So at this point, it was kind of, I don't know, very easy to mix the songs. And one of the songs, I opened it, I put everything into my template. I mix exactly like Billy Decker. So if anybody watched the Billy Decker nail mix, like that's me. I literally opened a template, dragged the consolidated audio into the slots, and that's what I did with this song. Opened it, loaded my template, dragged this, and hit play. Swear to God, it was done. Like no tweaks, just print it and sent it to the band, and they approved it. So there was one song. I mean, I guess you could say that was my quickest one.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it took. Maybe 10 minutes. I don't know.
That's pretty quick.
But I mean, you know, I spent a ton of time on the first 6 songs to get to that point. So
yeah,
I mean, and the thing about building a template like the one that Billy Decker uses or your templates is they're not just your average everyday templates. I mean, these are templates that have been put together over years.
Yeah, they get refined and yeah.
And they get tweaked, and they're like really, really, really worked out. Like they're like, I just want to let people know. So when they download my template or something, my routing template from my Creative Live or whatever, this is not the same kind of template. Like the Joey templates or the Decker templates are far more intricate than that.
Yeah, and the other thing is that I kind of know if, like, I have different templates. So I have, like, I don't know, like 13 templates, right? And I know, like, the little quirkiness of each one. So when I'm working on a project, I'm kind of also thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, I think this one kind of works with, like, template 4 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so that will change what mics I use and, like, what I tell the drummer to do, because I know. So it's basically what I'm saying is it all works together. You know, I'm thinking like, yeah, go ahead.
So you have a template when you record it too, not just for the mixing, or like.
Yeah, and they work together. So it's I kind of know if I'm like, well, this template usually kind of is bright on cymbals, I might use like a darker mic, just as an example, just to kind of like speeds everything up, because then when those cymbals go into that template, that's one less EQ move or one less like problem that I have to solve.
Yeah, we've been kind of starting from scratch on every recording, and like just imported some headphones listening, but it's a bit stupid, to be honest. It just takes time that you can spend on other stuff.
Yeah,
and then tweak it from the templates.
Well, I think that there was a long time where people made fun of templates, and so a lot of mixers were like, "I don't work from a template," or whatever. I'm not one of those template guys, but I think that that's small-minded, because the template itself took a ton of skill to put together. Yeah. To put together a template that you just pop tracks into and something sounds incredible, like 90% of the way there, incredible, that's not normal. Like, that's not like, it's not that easy. Like, it's, people make it sound like it's easy to do. That's not easy. That's super difficult. For it to work across multiple bands and still sound, like I said, 90% of the way there when you pull in the tracks, this is something that takes a ton of refinement. And the thing is that once you get it done, you save so much time. And I don't know about anybody else, but saving time to me is like the most amazing thing, because, you know, that's all we've got in life is time. Why spend it on dumb stuff?
True.
Have you considered doing that?
I haven't for recording. I haven't thought about it too much, but I mean for mixing, I obviously drag in like the reverbs and stuff that I want to use on almost everything, and stuff like that. Sometimes a guitar master bus that I know sounds good, I can tweak it from that. Stuff like that I use for the mix. But I have to look into it more for the recording too.
Well, I find that with recording, at least having a routed template that has like all the DIs and all the guitars already grouped together, all that stuff already done. It, you know, at the very least, that just makes life a lot faster.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like if it saves me 2 hours, then over the course of a year, you know, it ends up saving you a few days.
Yeah. Maybe
even a week. But, you know, that ends up being a week of your life that you've got back. A week per year over the course of a few years ends up being a few months of solid time that you spent there making sessions where you could have just had it to, you know, walk the dog or, you know, do whatever you want. So I don't know. I think it makes life better. So we've got some questions here from our audience for you that I want to ask you. So here's one from Vinny. And he said, the drums on the last 2 Architects records sound amazing. What microphones do you use, and what do you personally think you do so different compared to a lot of engineers out there recording metal bands?
Thanks a lot. I don't know if we do anything different, but I can start with the mics that we use. It's SM91 in the kick drum.
Nice.
And a Neumann U67 in front of the kick drum too, which distorts a bit and sounds good. Like that. And on the snare drum, it's Sunken CU31, both on top and bottom. It's a small handmade Japanese condenser mic, which sounds pretty cool. Like a bit richer than the normal SM57. And for the toms, it's the Beta 56, I think they call.
Wow, I've never tried one of those.
Yeah, they sound decent. And overheads is Neumann KM184.
Classic.
Yeah, sounds good. And then it's some spare like condenser mics on the China and Ride cymbal. Don't think we used the hi-hat on any of the 2 albums, the Architects. So that's basically it.
Great.
Much to it. And
do you tune your own drums?
Sometimes. Like on this project with the Architects, we had a guy coming in from Tama and tune them. But most of the time it's me or Fred tuning. But yeah, sometimes we bring in a tech guy.
And working with a drum tech is such a great thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome because you don't have to worry about it. It's
yeah.
Can you just tell him it sounds good, a little bit higher or something?
It just saves your ears too.
Yeah.
Okay, Johan Lund said, "Man, I can't even pronounce this, so I'm not even going to try. I'll stay to the English part. The bass and guitars sound so massive on the last 2 Architects albums. What was the signal chain on both? And how did you approach them in a mix to make them sound that friggin' awesome? Keep up the good work. Thanks."
Thanks a lot. It's like the amps is an EVH amp, and then like preamp out on the backside it goes into a 5150, and they both go to different cabs. Like the EVH has an Engel cab, 2 SM57s in front of it, like the normal Fredman miking technique. And then the 5150 goes to a Marshall with 2 mics in front of it, and then they get blended. And that's for 1 guitar, and then quad track them. So
that's a lot of microphones.
Yeah, it is. But on the latest one, we combine like all the microphone to 1 track, I think. Committed to it. And then there was also a diesel amp together with a Mesa Boogie with the same cabs, and those were guitar 3 and 4. So, and then in the mix it's well, I guess you will see it eventually, but there's some C4 from Waves to take care of some low end, to multiband compress some low end, and the lo-fi plugin from Pro Tools' own plugin adds a lot of some distortion extra. And
really, wow,
yeah.
Hold on, that's a really cool plugin that I don't think that many people know about.
No, I don't think so either. But we used it for a long time. Like I use it on every project I do.
On guitars.
On guitars, yeah.
Interesting. I have never seen it used on guitars before. But it's got a good distortion on it.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it boosts the volume a lot. Like where I have it, it boosts it like 4 dB, and I wish it had like an output trim, but it doesn't. So as soon as you turn it up, it sounds it's awesome. But it does something. It compresses the guitar a bit, like make them sound bigger. And then it's like some normal EQing, some taking out some bad frequencies with a narrow Q.
So it doesn't sound like it's anything that crazy.
No, it's I mean the amp sounds so good. together by themselves. I don't really like the EVH by itself. It sounds to me just thin and stuff, but together with a power amp from the 5150, it gets really meaty and fat.
I've never heard someone do that before. That sounds like a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Sure, it sounds incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Did you used to not sum the mics on the way in?
If we used to not sum the mics?
Yeah, did you just start doing that recently?
Well, sometimes it's like every other time. I think on the Lost Forever album, it's 2 tracks, 1 for each cab. So, and I think I panned them a bit different on that one. Like the Engel cab is full 100% panned, and the other one is 86% or something. So I don't know. It's just most of the time I do it into 2 tracks.
That makes life a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, because then you can set the levels between the guitars.
Yeah. So, question from Anthony Di Giacomo, which is, what's it like, or what was it like working for an absolute legend like Fredrik Nordstrom, and what kinds of things did Fredrik teach you that you still use today?
I mean, probably his approach, like to most things what I do today is it's probably from him, and then of course I refine them and want to do stuff my own way. But a lot of the stuff like recording guitars and stuff, it's learned from him by watching what he does, and the whole work approach, I think, with from file handling to whatever it can be, it's stuff that he did from the start, and then of course you do it your own way. I mean, we've been having arguments for 10 years about I want to do manual fades on guitars and stuff, and cut all the silent in between the notes manually, and he wants to use strip silence and do automatic crossfades. So
you guys still fight about that one?
Yeah, but now when I'm a free man now, so I can do whatever I want.
You can do your manual fades.
Yeah, but also after I got a son like 2 years ago, and
congrats.
Thanks.
Make him edit your drums?
Yeah, I will one day.
Oh, he's not editing them already?
Not yet.
Just start them at 6 months.
Yeah.
Be laying samples by 1 year.
But I guess that taught me how to, like, yeah, fuck it. I just strip silence and do automatic fades and get more time with my kid. I don't know. It's
oh, so maybe he was onto something with the strip silence.
Yeah, maybe he was. But I'm still really I'm doing most of the drum edits, like, and always enjoyed doing it. I think I'm one of the few guys that like it's like meditation for me to sit for 5 days and cutting drums. It's beautiful.
You're an angel. Man, I love people like you. I know like 2 other guys that love editing drums. It's like they're zen or something.
Yeah.
They really, really just enjoy it.
So fulfilling, like when stuff gets better and like, this is fucking awesome. And I don't know, but unless it's a terrible drummer, then it's a nightmare.
Yeah. I recommend all producers find someone they know who loves editing drums. Well, because not everyone does. You know, it's kind of like also the same thing with guitar teching. Mm-hmm. Or there are some guys who just naturally want to do that stuff. They love building guitars or setting up guitars or messing with how guitars are put together. And there's some guys who don't give a shit about that, like me, for instance.
Yeah, I don't. And same here.
Yeah, I couldn't care less. But it's always helped me to know guys who love that stuff, because I can have them set up my guitars rather than me do a bad job.
Yeah.
Just give it to someone who loves it. So here's a question from Ivan Aguilar, which is, how do you choose where to put synths on your productions? I love the Architect's post-production. and every single synth on those songs are perfect.
Well, those on the Architect's case, it's done from the pre-production already. Not that we don't record it again, but it's already there, and like most of the synths on that album is actually guitars through the Strymon pedal and the Timeline and Big Sky.
Oh, I love the Big Sky pedal, man.
So I mean, there's some synths, but I think most of what you hear, all the ambient stuff, is guitars just dreaming, floating.
So for anyone not familiar with the Big Sky, it's a modulating reverb pedal, and it's a lot like the Valhalla Shimmer plugin.
Yeah,
but it's like a pedal version of Valhalla Shimmer, and in some ways it sounds better because it's got that pedal reverb thing happening. But lots of people confuse modulated reverbs or even modulated delays with synths. When you put them on guitars, they sound like strings at times. They sound like dreamy, awesome sounds.
So, I mean, with a band like Architects, most of the music is done, and even like 98% of the IDs for the ambient stuff is all Tom doing what he does. And so it's more of making everything sound good when working with Architects, for example, and putting in input where it's needed.
So they're a band that really knows what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's probably the easiest band I've ever worked with for that reason. And like everyone knows the parts, and playing is awesome.
So Anthony Potenza is wondering, the low end on both LFLT and All Our Gods is absolutely insane. How did you get everything to fit together so tight, sound so clean and huge? How did you manage to get that huge of a guitar tone?
I don't know. It's his thick strings and playing well on the guitars, together with amps and a lot of C4 multiband compression. I think that's the thing that makes it sound good. And
I mean, you'll basically be showing them on the live mix.
Yeah.
How you do your low end. I have like 4 identical questions here about how do you get your low end so massive yet so clear on your mix. Like, I'm wondering, do you boost the subs with a multiband on the master, or do you add like max bass on the master, or is it in the individual tracks?
Never really used any like sub-harmonic stuff, so it's more like C4 doing some stuff. I don't know. I don't really know any other way to do it, so I can only make it sound like I do. So I don't know how you do it differently.
I'm very, very curious to see, because seriously, I've got all these questions about it.
Also, I could say like on the EVH, the low equalizer is always like on full to record it with a lot of bass, and I mean the tuning is also like, what is it, F sharp or something on some of the songs, so it's pretty damn low.
God, that's low.
Yeah.
So you record with a ton of low end and then control it.
Yeah.
After
we always used Uray LA22, so all the 4 guitar mics go into that one, and do some compressing away some of the low, shitty sounding stuff, like the stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And but it broke somewhere between the 2 albums, so it works with a C4 to do it, I think. Yeah. So we haven't got ourselves a new unit.
I know a lot of guys who record with too much high end because they want to then carve it afterwards.
Yeah. It's a bit too much low end in this case, and like I have to boost some high end on the guitars and try to control the low end.
with a ton of C4. That makes sense.
Or it's like one instance on the guitar master, and then there's a extra one on the master bus, and then probably use one more in the mastering chain, just a little bit.
So you're using multiple stages of multiband compression.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. What about on the bass? On there as well?
No, it's nothing like that on the bass. It's most of the time it's just a DI signal with a Sunsump, Proto's own Sunsump plugin, and just some EQing and compression.
Do you split your bass into two?
No, I'm gonna look into it actually. I heard some of your other podcasts, and I knew about it, the technique for a long time, but never really gone for that approach so far. But I will one day.
I love it and I hate it. Sometimes I really hate it. I hate it sometimes because it's hard to get the low and the high to sound like one instrument. Mm-hmm. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a lot easier for me to kind of not separate it into low and high, but to separate it into dirty and clean, and get the blend that way.
You probably talked about it a lot in the show already, but what is it you do? You like high pass filter out like 300 hertz?
Well, so there's one that's like low passed at like 100 or 150, and then one that's like 300 and up or 400 and up, depending. And the one that's high usually gets like some distortion.
Yeah.
And the one that's low just gets limited to shit. So that it's just like a block of low end.
Okay.
And then they just get blended together.
Yeah.
So they sound like one instrument. I mean, Joey, does that sound about right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can...
Is there anything else to it?
I mean, there's ways to make, I like to, for example, on the top end, you might put some distortion or something, but then once you've put them together into a bus, I mean, a little bit of compression, a little bit of even more distortion on there sometimes can like make it blend together a little more. I feel like just processing the two signals in any sort of way, like even if it's just compression, it starts to like weld it together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I will for sure look into it, because that's always been like the hardest thing for me to mix is the bass. Always struggle with it. And like on the latest Architects album, I think Al used a Dingwall bass for some of the songs. And at the time when we decided what to record on, I think I decided for another bass that I thought sounded better, but then in the mix, the Dingwall was much better. So I was like, oh, we should have done all the album with this bass, but...
That sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Your original instinct was the best way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's... Usually, I find that I'm usually right the first time.
All right, in this case, I was totally wrong the whole time. Because I voted for the other bass. But anyway.
Still sounds great, though.
Yeah, thanks.
So, Henrik, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
It's been great talking to you, and looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks in Florida.
Yeah, me too.
To do Nail the Mix with Architects.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
The Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast is brought to you by Two Notes Audio Engineering. Two Notes is a leader in the market for load box, cabinet, and mic simulators. Gone are the days of having ISO rooms or having to record an amp at ear-bleeding volumes to capture that magic tone. The Torpedo Live, Reload, and Studio allow you to crank your amp up as loud as you want, but record silently. Check out www.2-notes.com for more info. To ask us questions, make suggestions, and interact, visit nailthemix.com.